Welcome to Resilience Development in Action, where strength meets strategy and courage to help you move forward. Each week, your host, Steve Bisson, a therapist with over 2 decades of experience in the first responder community, brings you powerful conversations about resilience, growth, and healing through trauma and grief. Through authentic interviews, expert discussions, and real-world experiences, we dive deep into the heart of human resilience. We explore crucial topics like trauma recovery, grief processing, stress management, and emotional well-being. This is Resilience Development in Action with Steve Bisson.
Hi, and welcome to episode 223. If you haven't listened to episode 222, go back and listen. Adam Neff is a very interesting guy. Very interesting conversation, so I hope you enjoy it. But episode 223 is with a returning guest, Erin Sheridan. Erin is someone I know personally. We've worked on a team together that now has become Behind the Badge and Beyond, a great group that hopefully will be developing in exciting features very, very soon. But Erin is also someone who has a great canine, Bella, works in her own private practice with first responders, does EMDR. We've actually consulted on a few cases. Don't know if she's going to bring that up. But anyway, here is the interview. GetFree.ai. You heard me talk about it. I'm going to keep on talking about it because I love it. I've had about a year and a half, 18 months practice with it, and I still enjoy it. And it saves me time and it saves me energy. Free.ai takes your note, makes a what you're talking with a client, you just press record, and it does either transcript, it does a subjective and an objective with a letter if needed for your client and for whoever might need it. So for $99 a month, it saves me so much time that it's worthwhile. And if you do it for a whole year, guess what? You get 10% off. More importantly, this is what you got to remember because you are my audience that listens to Resilience Development in Action. If you do listen to this and you want to use free.ai, put in the code STEVE50 in the promo code area, STEVE50, and you will get $50 off in addition to everything we just talked about. Get freed from writing your notes. Get freed from even writing your transcripts. Use that to your advantage. Free.ai, a great service. Go to getfree.ai and you will get one of the best services that will save you time and money. And I highly encourage you to do so. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 223. You know, I have a guest that I consider a friend now. We've worked together almost a year now with a group that it was a first responders coalition with mental health. Now it's become Behind the Badge and Beyond. And she's a great therapist, but she's also very funny. She asked me to lead her in this podcast, which I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. So she's really funny. Erin Sheridan, welcome again to Resilience Development in Action.
Hi. It'll be kind of like the blind leading the blind.
That's okay. Isn't that what we always do anyway, right? When we're doing therapy. Are you good at this? Sure.
Pretty much. I just always wonder who put me in charge of people.
Well, it's funny. I'll just mention this because I would think it's funny is people ask me like, oh, you must be good at this. I'm like, well, I've never dealt with blank-year-old female male who's been in this situation at this time. I've never dealt with that. I've dealt with similar, but I don't know how to do this. I'm fucking guessing. And that takes away the whole imposter syndrome for me, because then it makes me feel like I've been truthful and honest, but I don't know if I'm like you. I'm just, I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
I think EMDR like really pushed the threshold with that too, because like you're keeping people way up here. Probably can't see me. It's like that window of tolerance, and it's like you like have to kind of keep leading them and just see where it goes. And it's like, all right, like I guess we're going there. Crap. What do I do? What do I say? And then you have to just kind of keep going with it. Literally.
Go with that.
Yep.
That's my default.
Yep. That's all it is at this point. So I'm like, all right, what's going to come up next? And then sometimes you're surprised and things are good. It's kind of a crazy thing.
The EMDR stuff is so fascinating for me because, you know, I don't know what your experience is, but most of the time the traumas that they remember is not the trauma you end up working on, but that's just my experience.
Yep, it goes in every direction. You would think that it would be linear, but it's like basically a toddler scribbled all over a paper, and that's kind of where all the thoughts go.
Well, we can talk about EMDR later, but I
Yeah.
know you. I absolutely for the record, it's not like fake. Me and Erin really work together and really enjoy each other's company. We're even helping a fellow therapist getting herself on her feet so that she can do the same crap we do and be as confused as
Mm-hmm.
we are.
Yep.
Uh, but anyway, that's enough about me describing you. How about you describe yourself?
Hey, I'm Erin Sheridan. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Mass, and I'm also a licensed professional counselor and licensed addiction counselor in the state of Connecticut. I started actually my career off working in Connecticut, doing drug court, a lot of work in addiction, IOP, PHP, and then eventually gravitated back here once I moved a little bit further out towards Western Mass. It didn't really make sense to drive an hour to work, especially during COVID. So that's when I opened up my practice. And now I solely focus first responders, veterans. I have a few clients that are not that have just been with me and have followed me for a long time. And right now I'm working on my EMDR certification, working on training a therapy dog. Yeah,
Well, I can't wait for Bella to be a therapy dog
me too.
because
Me
once that's
too.
done, I'm getting the merch, and just for the record, I'm getting the merch.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I've already got a designer for embroidered sweatshirts. It's great. We'll have to come up with stuff.
I will actually get one because I love I met Bella at least at one
Yeah.
meeting. Um,
Yep.
she's very sweet. She right,
She is. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
She's a little crazy, but she's a very good girl.
kind of describes our job, doesn't it?
hmm
Uh,
hmm
for those of you who don't know, you have a passion for first responders. There's a lot of stuff that you mentioned already. We've had a
hmm
similar course of action. I've started two drug courts. I've worked in several more. I ran a PHP IOP program. And for those of you who don't know all this alphabet soup, that's the problem with our field. Intensive outpatient program, partial hospitalization program, PHP IOP, and then EMDR we mentioned earlier was eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. What I find funny is we always talk about those things. But
hmm
you talked about drug court, PHP, you talked about everything, and you work with first responders. What's the name of the company again?
So my practice is beautifully unbroken counseling.
How'd you come up with that?
So this is a sounds so corny. I had a dream one night and then I woke up and then that's how I came up with it. I don't remember the context of the dream. I just remember beautifully unbroken and then I woke up and I was like, huh, that's going to be the name of my practice. And that's what I went with. Really corny.
It's not corny. I think that that's the stuff that what I'm finding more and more, maybe because I just turned 50 a couple of months ago, but people do want to embrace their spirituality and their dreams and everything they
Mhm.
see. So I don't find that corny. I think as I grow older, that corniness goes away and more like it's significant. But
Mhm.
that's just me. Although some dreams make
Well,
me.
I think like the biggest thing with like my practice, I think of, like a lot of people come in and believe they're broken, and I don't believe anybody is broken. I think we have to unbreak them in some weird way, and that process is tough, but in the end, it can be a beautiful thing.
I can't even remember who said this to me, so I'm not gonna. It's not mine. But someone said, actually, we need to break you. You're
Hmm
already unbroken because you created all these defense mechanisms that were so helpful to you for all those years. But now they're fucking not serving you. So we got to do something
hmm
to break you. So even I heard
hmm
like to break someone is to unbreak them, if that makes any sense.
hmm Absolutely. Yeah, and so I that I came up with that, and that was several years ago now, and it's just kind of stuck, and it's weird because it doesn't sound like a practice based around first responders. It sounds kind of like girly, but I'm like, I like it. It's my practice, and it's me, so that's what you got.
Well, I think that you have one of those characteristics that we talked about right before we started recording, and I really appreciate that. You have that girly, feminine, young girl, and
And
then
then
you
I
get
opened my mouth.
and then you fucking slam them. And I think that that's a gift. I really do. I can't do the girly thing, obviously, but the rest of it is like I like to play innocent sometimes, and people are like, "Oh, you don't know about this," and then you're like, "Actually, I do know a lot more than you think." But I played
hmm
stupid for a while. I think it's a
hmm
great way for people to see where they're at and how they interact with other people. Because if they treat you like you're stupid, it's already
Mhm.
strike one for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, like for just the counseling in general, building the rapport, I think like people don't know how to take it, especially when they come in and they're like, oh, here's like the therapist. And then again, I open my mouth and I can understand exactly what they're saying. I think like last time I was on with everybody else, you had mentioned like going to a call. Well, what's a call? Like they're going to a call, or the tones go off or pager goes off, and people are like, oh, what, like a beeper? Like it looks like it, but a little bit bigger.
Kind of.
So I think like just being able to know some of that stuff, and then people kind of like sit back and like, oh, okay, maybe she does know. I don't. I'm hoping that's what they think, but that's kind of the body language transition that I say.
But I think that part of our job as therapists, and I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, particularly with first responders, is to be disarming in the
Mhm,
sense that, I always, I've never claimed to be a first responder. I've worked a lot with them, but I'm not a first
mhm,
responder. So sometimes it's
mhm,
disarming to them. And then they're like, oh, you know about all this crap? And it becomes
mhm,
like, oh, I can sit around and be my buddy. Still a therapist, but
mhm.
now you feel buddy buddy. That's great.
Right. Mhm. Absolutely. Because I think especially with this population, just to be able to build that rapport and put down some of those guards, because like they're always on edge, it's always hyper vigilant. So to be able for them to like get that down a little bit and not have like be overstimulated in session, I think, is definitely a helpful for getting someplace. I mean, there's times that we can keep them up there, like I said, in EMDR, but I think just to start building that rapport, building that trust, because like the moment they come in, like sizing you up, like, is this person going to like get it? And there's always like the test questions just to, kind of see where you're at. But yeah, no, I like building the rapport with them.
What's the difference between dead, dead, and dead?
Right, right. Dead, dead. You're really dead. You ain't coming back.
No, but that's what I mean. That's my favorite one too. I think you mentioned that one day when
Mm-hmm.
we were talking, and I'm like, oh, I love that one because that's what they do
Mm-hmm.
with me. Do you know the difference? I'm like, no, can you
Mm-hmm.
please explain to me? I don't have hair to twirl, but I try to pretend.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, you do
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm like, yeah, please. Been around a couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
right.
I always tell that my favorite line is, I've been around for a couple of weeks. I read that one book. I should be okay. But anyway, I know that you
Like
have a
that.
I love the whole thing about first responders particularly meaningful to you, but I know why, but can you explain a little bit to the audience as to why it's so meaningful for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I come from a first responder family, and I've unfortunately seen where it can leave a pretty negative impact on a family, from alcoholism to everything else under the sun that can go wrong in a family. So my goal was to not do that. So of course, I married a first responder, which didn't help the plan, but the goal was to have a healthy relationship, to have a really good relationship, and I do have that. I'm married to a firefighter, medic, and safety diver who sees a lot and has been on the job for quite a while. And I don't know, I enjoy hearing different things when he comes home, and I like the atmosphere of the firehouse. I love the camaraderie. I love how everybody's got your back. Like you could be pissed off at each other, but if you need something, they're there in a heartbeat. And it's kind of a cool thing to see. And it's a little bit, sometimes of an extended family, which is really nice. They're great guys and gals, and I love seeing them. And they're unbelievably funny. Like to be able to work with folks that have a similar sense of humor that I do, that's not really, you know, taken well in many places, in many contexts, but in my office, it works really well. And I think just to understand a lot of the humor and still hear a lot of the humor at my house, like, not worrying about, oh my gosh, am I going to say something offensive? But 9 times out of 10, it can be outdone pretty easily. And I think it's absolutely hysterical. So, yeah, so I really wanted to, have the opposite version of a relationship that I grew up around. And I was able to get that. And I get to see and I get to experience what it's like to be able to have conversations and to talk about the job. I mean, sometimes talk about my stuff and still be okay. And have like just that comfort. And it's nice to see that, you can have a healthy relationship within first responders, because I think there's such negative connotation about, okay, what it's like to be married to a firefighter or a police officer. People are always just assume that, oh, well, there's domestic violence, there's abuse, there's alcoholism. There's not. It's a small population of that.
It's the same thing that, we've talked about before. I think there's domestic violence in CEOs to business
Mhm.
people to restaurant people and there's no discrimination about domestic
Right.
violence. It's just
No.
perceiving more because if there's a DV within the first responder world, it's front page news on the local news and
Oh yeah,
sometimes national news.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks that's what it is. And it's definitely not. It's such a small fraction of it. And I mean, sure, are there good cops, bad cops? Absolutely. Good firefighters, bad firefighters, good CEOs, bad CEOs, like all of them. I think it's such a small population that is like the not so great ones. And I think there's more good ones, but I think that's where trauma comes in. And I think people have trauma and that's what happens. And I'm probably going to get hate even for saying this, but all the ones that you see on the news that things go really bad, there's probably some element of trauma that happens and there's some reaction, or you can only take so much and you explode, and there's like the anger and there's symptoms of something more. And I think a lot of people just don't see that. And it's unfortunate because that can be worked on in therapy.
Well, first of all, if you're controversial, that's perfect. That's controversy creates cash. But
Yeah, I don't
I'll
care.
all joking aside, I don't think you're controversial personally because it's the truth.
Mhm,
95%
mhm,
of the firefighters, it's this, I say this all the time on my podcast. 95% of firefighters, police, EMT, paramedic, dispatchers, COs, all they want to do is go to work, be safe, and come home.
mhm.
That's all they want to do. There's 5% now,
Absolutely.
assholes are not good people. And
Hmm.
yes, of those 5%, highly likely some sort of mental health issue. And to
Hmm.
me, it's one of those things that when you wait too long for your treatment of mental health or addiction or whatever, that's what
Hmm.
leads to this 5%. I'm wondering if we can talk a little more in regards to, what happens when we wait too long for treatment, because that's what I feel happens a whole lot.
Hmm.
I've seen people who come to me after the six or seven, we'll call them incidents, and they don't have to
Hmm.
be police or fire incidents. They're just incidents, and
Right,
they're slowly breaking. And that's not the
right,
expression. They're really breaking because all their defense mechanisms they've used are just shattered now. They don't fucking work. Can you
right.
talk more about a little bit of that waiting for treatment and what the consequences are?
Absolutely. I mean, like, think about it too. Like, I think a lot of people be like, "Oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll make that call tomorrow." But there's never really a good time to start treatment. It's gonna suck going in no matter what you do. So, but you got to get that stuff out. I think, kind of similar to working with folks with alcoholism addictions, they really don't see that there's a problem until they hit rock bottom. Everybody else sees that it's a problem. And with mental health, like most of the time other people are seeing it's a problem, but sometimes it's hidden. It might come out like anger or it might come out as avoidance, things like that. But I think that the longer you're waiting, the more you're just kind of stuffing things down and it's going to explode, similar to with alcoholism. Like you get in that DUI and then realize, like, oh crap, there may be a problem, there may be not a problem, but now I'm forced to go to treatment. I'm fine, I don't have an issue, but now like you're working on it and stuff is starting to come up. So I think like nobody wants to address it. I think there's such a huge stigma among first responders, veterans too, for seeking out mental health treatment. When research shows the more you talk, the better outcome there's going to be.
Yeah, but I think that that's where I think that, again, yes, I'll be controversial on my own podcast. That's where within the community of firefighting, of police and all that, becomes detrimental, because you say,
Hmm.
hey, you know what, I had a problem with this call and this and that. Next thing you know, some Johnny and Jane are being told that, you can't fucking handle the job, or you're this or you're that, and then they're like, fuck
Right.
it, I'll never talk about it again, and then they let it
Hmm.
accumulate. I don't know if that's your experience, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's 100%, by the way, but the truth
Yeah. A lot
is
of
sometimes,
departments still do that.
oh, 100%. And that's what to
Hmm.
me is the problem, is that,
Hmm.
hey, you know what? I'm having a tough time with this call. You know what? Erin can't handle her own shin. And then, God
Hmm.
forbid, you're a woman, then that adds a little layer, right? And sorry for
Hmm.
controversy, but yeah, see, she can't really handle it. And I'm like, motherfucker. So I don't know if that's your
Mm-hmm.
experience, but I think that part of the
Yeah.
stigma is that people are chatty, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
word, and then that causes
Right.
the delay for getting treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there are many departments that they don't handle it the right way, especially if there's somebody there at the department that does like, stress evaluations or, they send them through EAP through the department or department clinician. Like it's got to be separate. It absolutely has to be because if the trauma is coming from the job and you have the job assessing you, like that's not really going to help. You got to go outside. And I'm sure there's probably some great EAP programs out there that, they don't send notes or they're not descriptive in their notes for clients or don't report back from the job, which is great, but they're few and far between, which is unfortunate. So I think the benefits of going to like a private practice and doing something on your own, you're gonna have, I think, a little bit more confidentiality.
And I think that that's why wellness visits have become a little more prevalent or within the police fire community.
Hmm.
But I also think that there's that stigma of, oh, I'm Erin does wellness visits. She's not going to leave a note, but everyone knows I went to see Erin. And
Hmm.
I think that you see that sometimes even with more federal level. Oh, I went to see the internal review or whatever, and they end up seeing a
Hmm.
psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, whatever you want to call them this week.
Hmm.
And I think that that's the stuff that also plays a factor. How do we kind of like, and again, there's an administration betrayal too that
Hmm.
happens sometimes
Hmm.
too. Again, being
Right.
controversial or not, that's just what it is. The chief
Right.
so saying, "Well, you know what? Steve went to see Erin for treatment, oh, chief, or for
Mhm.
wellness or whatever." No, that's
Well, it's like a
well,
punishment.
fuck you, chief. Why are you
Right.
telling people about that? That's supposed to be quiet without saying fuck you, as I just said really nicely. How do we
Hmm.
kind of get that message across to administration that this is also something we need to protect?
Well, I think that to stop kind of the punitive process of, oh, you had this, you need to go here and get evaluated, I think be more proactive. And I don't think a lot of departments are proactive in the sense of, okay, maybe let's have education around mental health, addictions, trauma, just general wellness. They do trainings, have trainings specifically on that, whether it be you have a peer support team within a department or you have somebody that you're connected with, like in Massachusetts we got CISM, have them come in, have them do different trainings, like especially if you can get like con eds, like why not? Then you're at least listening, maybe getting like a little nugget of something out of that. Have other presenters come in. Again, so much is normalize it, right? Like don't make it be, all right, you saw this, now you need to go here as a punishment. Have it just kind of always be talked about. Have more access to CISM. Like there's departments that within their contracts they only have officers can call for CISM. Anybody can call. Like that's the other thing. So it becomes like you have to then ask for permission to talk to somebody. And in reality, you don't because it's a completely confidential service. And whether that's just having a peer come in or seeing a clinician or having like a full debrief, like have that available. If you have it available versus you have to ask for permission, it doesn't really seem like something that's going to be taken advantage of because nobody wants to go and say, oh, hey, I have a problem. I need to talk to somebody. Have it be available. Then it becomes more of like the culture of the department and like a quote unquote normal thing that's just there.
And sometimes what I find is some departments will be like, ah, this is not schism worthy. Well, if
Hmm.
someone on the team said that they needed it's not up to
Yeah,
you, administration, and I mean that from sergeants up or in the police.
absolutely. Because a lot of
Yeah,
times it's not even about the call, it's about
right.
something completely different.
And I think that that's what helps with creating more of that feeling of administration betrayal. Because to
Hmm.
me, I think that we need wellness visits, we need peer support, and we need SISMs, not one
Hmm.
or the other, or perhaps two out of the three. We need all three. And,
Absolutely.
and that way,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
No, I think if they have more peer support, have more access to CISM, Yeah, my role isn't as important because the peers are usually going to like get to somebody and like work with them initially better. Like it's a perfect like triage first line. The more you have that in, maybe the less they need clinicians. And yeah, I might put myself out of a job, but I'm happy that they're at least getting some help. And then at the point when they need a clinician, okay, we're here. Here's a list of people within the community that understand your job, right? Having like mental health providers come in or other wellness providers that have experience working with first responders come in. This way they can put like a name to a face and not just, oh, there's this mysterious person in this location who knows anything about them. You then have somebody maybe that they've made a connection with, and maybe it's 3 years from now they make that phone call, but like, hey, I met you during this. I really enjoyed talking to you. I think that that's a totally different way that's probably going to be more effective and at least have it be part of it, just an everyday conversation versus only talking about it when times are tough. I think you got to be proactive with it, get it in there, have it be something that's not just the stigma around, oh, I got to go see this person, for an evaluation. It's no, I'm going to go talk to my therapist about this call, process it, and feel better on my way out when I leave. I think that's a little bit better approach.
You're not going to get an argument out of me. I think that that's why, like, for me, I encourage therapists who want to work with first responders, go to your local
Mhm.
PD, go to your local FD, and go talk to them and
Mhm.
go sit around. Like, to me, the best experience I ever had was really sitting at dispatch. And we had a regional, so we did fire and police at the same time,
Mhm.
and sitting there and learning how that works. And then, all
Mhm.
right, jump into the police officer's car, or can you go with fire for this? And, obviously we had permissions and all that happy
Mhm.
horse shit. But ultimately, I think that was much more of an education to me. And yes, thank you, Advocates, my old company, who gave me those things. But that
Mhm.
gave me much more of an education than me reading it in a book. And not only
Mhm.
that, people from those departments remember me from, hey, remember you went on a call
Right.
with me? Hey, do you have any openings? I just need to chat. And then suddenly
Mhm.
you've lifted a stigma, and you're one of the girls, one of the boys, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
and instead of some fucking outsider sitting there saying, I know a lot about first responders. Well, that's great. That's just words.
Mhm.
And they don't really
Absolutely.
want to talk about people who say those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about being proactive with it because if you have a shit call and then you've never had any, talk about mental health, no talk about CISM, nobody's going to know what to do. And I've seen it where everybody panics and literally nobody knows what to do in that situation. And they make it much more complicated than it ever needs to be. Even just having basic, like, say, us as a team go in, give a presentation. This is how you contact us. This is why you would contact us. Here's the numbers versus everybody just panicking. It makes it a little bit easier. Like, all right, we have this one point person that's going to call. Yep, I think we need to make this phone call. Let's call. Team comes in. You go from there. But versus everybody just panicking and being like deer in the headlights and not know what to do, that's not helpful because it just adds to the stressful event. And then sometimes when they panic, they may not think like, all right, well, we just don't need to call. We'll be good. We're fine because they're fine. Or who's making that decision that they're fine?
Right. Well, more than that, too. Not too long ago, I'd say in the last couple of years, oh, I know the CISM person, but I'm going to hold the phone number. I'm going to call them so they can call you. This lack of
Mm-hmm.
sharing resources was also,
Mm-hmm.
and again, continues to be a problem. It's a little less now. But to me,
Yeah.
like me knowing Erin, I want everyone to know I know Erin. She's not in my area and she can help you. And if it takes
Mm-hmm.
away from me getting a client, I don't really care because
Yeah.
the client is what's more important than me getting $2.50 and
Absolutely.
50 cents, because that's essentially what we get paid at this point. Uh, but all joking aside, I think the other
Mm-hmm.
part too that I want to really address with you, because you've seen it and I've seen it, there's when people delay too long. For me, 55% of the first respond, or there's a 55% more likelihood of suicide in the first responder world than the general pop
Mm-hmm.
or civilians, whatever you want to call them, even
Mm-hmm.
though me and Erin are civilians also. It
Mm-hmm.
also affects work because then you don't trust, or you seem to be like in a gaze, or you're fucking angry. And then it affects your family because you go home and you're
Hmm.
not present for your partner, you're not there for your kids,
Hmm.
you're not there for mom, dad, neighbor, whatever. I mean, I don't know about you, but
Hmm.
to me, that's the other really hidden issue with delaying treatment for first responders.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially like when they bring it home and a lot of times they just shut down or it comes out in anger because it's easier to be angry than talk about anything, or it's easier to be angry than feel sad. It takes out on their kids. Maybe they isolate or they just keep picking up more shifts so then they don't even have to be home. That's not helpful to family life. And I think there's a lot of first responders that they don't talk to their spouses, whether they try to think they're protecting them. They're not, because if where our imaginations are left up to us, like it's going to be something out of like Fire Country or Chicago Fire or any of those big like Hollywood shows, when in reality it's not like that. But that's what we end up assuming is going on. And then again, you're not spending any time together. There's no connection, not going to family gatherings, and spouses have to say, oh, yeah, no, I promise they exist. It's not helpful. The kids don't see their parents. That's not great either. They miss their parents. And then they wonder, or the first responder wonders why, oh, well, they're not listening to me. They're, defiant, or they're doing this. Well, they're never there. So they don't even like know you. How are they going to listen to you? It messes up the whole family dynamic, and it snowball effects. And then at that point it's like, all right, they become super depressed, super angry. They think there's one way out because they're not going to go talk to anybody.
And then you suicide rates are so high because of those things and holding it in.
Absolutely.
The other
Absolutely. And
part,
there's been so many this year too, just this year alone. It's crazy. I feel like almost every month there's a first responder on the news. It's sad.
well, New York City has been plagued by suicides lately.
Hmm.
And I say lately in the last year or so. So not, if you guys are listening, this will be out in October or so. I don't want people to say, well, not in the last month. Okay, I get it, but that's not what I meant.
Hmm.
Do,
Yeah.
do you do you think the other part too is one of the things that I find that there's an impact, and I talk about this because I think it's so important, is that, and again, I've never met your husband, so I don't think he exists, just for the record. But all joking aside, I also know that it creates better feelings from partners. A
Hmm.
lot of partners like come to me and they go like, you know, Jane or John is and like so into their work because they're taking details or they're forced or
Hmm.
whatever, that the bitterness becomes really prevalent at home. Have you encountered
Absolutely.
that? I mean, I'm not talking, if you want to talk about your own life, that's fine too. But I'm
Hmm.
just talking about in general. I mean, again, you don't have a husband as far as I know. I think you made that up. But all joking aside, I think that, do you see that? Because I see it all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, for myself, like I'm absolutely guilty of like getting frustrated with the job and picking up like overtime details. But usually for us, there's some type of like actual plan or reasoning why, like financially, like why we're doing something. Whether it be that, to save to buy a house, or like, we're building a garage, like we need to be able to like financially figure this out so that there's an end goal in it. So yeah, it can get frustrating, but I know why we're doing it as well. But I think for other like spouses, if you think of, say, the mandated overtime, right? There's a lot of departments that I think are in this right now that are completely understaffed, and they're forcing guys in for 48, 72s. Like, thank goodness some have it in their contracts that they can't work past a certain time, but that also takes away from family. And again, yeah, it's like a department issue where they're not fully staffing folks, but on many levels, think like safety levels, but how it affects them at home. They're missing birthdays, they're missing holidays, they're missing family days, they're missing the weekends when their kids are home. That sucks. That really sucks. And I think that's a whole other issue that I don't think the general public thinks about when they're thinking, oh yeah, we should, not staff these, or we need to defund these. That, like, you want your tax dollars to go to having public safety. Like that's such a big thing. But also look at the effect at home. And when you have, there's the people, they're like, oh well, you're married to this, like they must be violent, they must be this. no, like they're not. You're just taking away from their entire family life. Like there's so much of a snowball effect there. It's just levels and levels of issues that are created, and it affects people at home too. And I don't think a lot of folks realize that.
I'll go a step further than you.
Go for it.
Having done 24 hours myself, again, not a firefighter. I know they sleep all the time. That's a joke, by the way, for those who want to write me. It's a joke because I hear that all the time. They're like, you're mean. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be funny. Having done a 24-hour in the mental health world in a crisis team, having done a 24-hour because of XYZ reason,
Mhm.
I'm fucking junk after that 24 hours. Even if I got to sleep on my desk when I did crisis, we can sleep on the desk, but you're not really sleeping because the phone rings. I
Yeah.
got to handle it. And if I got to go to
Mhm.
a call, I go to a call. It's not like it's so different, but it's not. So I get it. And then I'm drunk the
Mhm.
next day. And then my spouse goes, oh, great. So now I got to take care of the kids. We were supposed to go apple picking. I was forced or whatever. I think
Mhm.
that the impact that you people don't see is, oh, you work 24, you get paid good for that, or did a 48, so you got overtime or time and a half. But the impact on the family life is a lot more than what people
Mhm.
think. And I don't know if
Absolutely.
you can speak to that, but I certainly
Mhm.
want to mention that too, because I'm sure your husband does a 24, he's stuck on a 48. He gets home, he's not like, hey, babe, hi, kids, let's go
Mhm.
do this. I mean,
Oh
no,
yeah.
he's junk.
I think we've had 75, 80 hours in a row before,
Damn.
and I think like, I mean, even if you think of like some departments that are really busy where, it's a typical Tuesday to do, say, 27 calls in a 24-hour period of time. Think about that. Think about you have 24 hours and you have 26, 27 calls. That's straight through. You're not sleeping. And then you're forced in. You're on now a 48 doing the same exact thing. That's not healthy at all,
No.
on the body, on the family. You're It's just creating so many issues, and absolutely there's like resentments at home from the spouse, from the kids. It's unfortunate, and I wish there's, more departments would be like, oh yeah, we should probably staff more so we don't end up having this issue. Or again, have the opposite. We just pick up overtime so we don't have to like deal with the problems. That's not healthy either. It's just layers and layers of problems.
And I'm sure you see it yourself. Well,
Mhm.
Jane didn't take that overtime and John didn't take that overtime. So fuck them. I know they're gonna get forced. So fuck them. Also, the infighting within departments is absolutely fucking bonkers to me. But that's just
Uh-huh.
what I want to mention that because that happens a lot. Oh, Erin
Uh-huh.
didn't take the overtime, so now I'm forced for a 48 when she's going to be wanting me to take overtime. Screw her. And that's the other part too is that as I understand, you're part of a team and communicate. The other
Mhm.
part too is not only about your mental health, but part of mental health is to communicate with your partner. You know what? I'm
Mhm.
being forced on a 48. If I get 3 or 4 hours, can we still go to John Doe's party? Or
Mhm.
can we still go on the lake or whatever? I think that there's also something that's not encouraged is that the communication. I was forced on a 48. Well, the spouse is sitting there going, forced 48 with 2 calls or forced 48 with 27 calls. And 27
Mhm.
calls, they're not all cardiacs, by the way, and they're not all fires, just for
Mhm.
everyone who doesn't know.
Mhm.
But even if you do transport 27 times, even in a 48-hour span, you're not really up to going to John's party where everyone's going, hey, where's your worst call you ever got? And no one wants to talk about that shit. But anyway, that's just my
Mhm.
2 cents on that's my
Yeah, no,
political side. But
you're
I think
right.
that happens.
Absolutely, it does. And I think being able to kind of communicate again, like not, tell, you don't have to like tell every single detail, but like, hey, like, did you have a lot of calls? Was it a busy shift overnight? Was it, like decent calls, or was it the dumb calls? And, like the dumb calls is the person that sprained their toe 4 days ago and needed an ambulance at 2 a.m. Things like that. But I think either way, like they're still getting up, the sleep's still disrupted. They still got to write a report, like that stuff adds up, so I think again it's such a multi-level thing where you've got one that affects the other, that affects the other, that affects the other, and either way it all comes home. It does.
And that's why I think that it's important because it brings home, or you hold it in and then you put the
Hmm.
pressure on mental health. And it's a
Yeah.
great way to fall asleep. alcohol makes me sleep right away.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and we didn't touch too much on addiction, but addiction is also something that happens a lot
Mhm.
because well, I need to stay awake, so I'll take Adderall, or
Mhm.
I need to relax. Let me pop a benzo and alcohol. And again, I'm not attacking every
Or
single
weed.
one. What? Or
Or
weed? Yep.
weed. Mhm.
The chewies, as I've heard it talked about with some people. But the bottom line
Mhm.
is that we don't talk about that stuff. And while it may not start off as problematic, and again, for those of you who are not in this world, not every first responder does that. It's not what I'm implying. I'm implying that it does come up that way. And that, no, I don't have a problem. I'm just, smoking weed every night to go to sleep. Well, that
Mhm.
seems problematic if you can't stop. Or I got to
Right.
drink when I get home in order to sleep, but then you certainly don't sleep. You stay up and you play video games, or you
Mhm.
shoot the shit with the neighbor. But ultimately, I think that's another part that we don't talk about in the first responder world. There's an addiction issue that comes up.
Right. Yeah, and it comes up far more frequently. And I think even, I know about you as like a therapist. It's like I'm always kind of having my ear open for different types of addictions. And I think there's that fine line too within the culture of first responders that it is cultural for drinking, but there's also the point of when does it become a problem? And I think that's always like can be a challenge to kind of tease out to figure out what's problem drinking and what's drinking culturally, socially. So I think there's that line that's always, it's a very fine line to walk because people have other coping skills. That's great. If their coping skill is, hanging out with Jack Daniels, not so great. We got to talk about that. So I think there's always that line of what's social, what's not, and there's some that like, is this? You're not quite sure. You kind of have to stay with it, but you end up seeing that it's not, and it's just kind of a social thing. That's okay. It's more when is it becoming problematic, and if you're coming home and just drinking to forget, it's a problem.
That's exactly what I was going to mention about coping mechanism. I think
Hmm.
drinking, so to me, I look at the substance use as if it's a coping mechanism. So
Hmm.
if you socially drink and you go out with the boys and you drink 4 or 5 because that's what you do, or the girls, right? Okay, I get that. That's just one night and that's not a problem. But now it becomes like I need it every night, or I need it every time I go out in order to deal with the anxiety of talking to people or what have you.
Hmm.
I think it's not uncommon to see that. And it's
Yeah.
important to look at it as the coping mechanism versus socialization. Some of you guys can drink socially a lot, and that's great. And congratulations. I cannot.
Hmm.
I think that that's just my choice, but I think it's because of my coping mechanisms in the past.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm truthful with
Right.
my clients, and disclosure. I think one of the things I always mention is disclosing to your clients real stuff, particularly in the first responder
Hmm.
world, goes very, 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 very.
It's so different from, I think, just other populations of again, like you're still like thinking ethically, right? But I think you have to have a little piece into you because otherwise, why would they talk to you? They're not gonna. They're
Right.
not gonna.
You know,
I mean, even my office, but my office, this is my home office. Like, I have things in there that show, hey, like this is who I am. I've talked about like my coping skills. I mean, sure, I'd love to have a drink every so often. I tend to be like more on the allergic side, or I just fall asleep after a few sips. So I'm not really that much fun drunk. It's just cheaper. But yeah, sure, but again, it's figuring out that line of what's a coping mechanism. And sometimes I think they can be blurred too, like guys
yep.
who like to go golfing, but they're drinking on the course the whole time. Okay, so yeah, you've got a coping mechanism of golf, but how much of it is also that it becomes like beer pong where you're then, it's blurry, and the drunker you get, the better you get. Like we gotta tease that stuff out. But if you have other coping mechanisms, like you like going hiking, you like, you like the gym, like, I don't know, like CrossFit, or you like going fishing, or, doing any of these other things, okay, that's great. Let's do more of that. I know when I started using EMDR, I've been able to really kind of get more of those coping skills driven in. There's this one phase of EMDR that we look at resourcing, and resourcing is what are healthier ways that we can, they call it install, like really kind of remember, get used to using, use repeatedly so you build mastery over it, that becomes your new coping mechanism. Maybe you don't need to drink as much. You know, you have a difficult session. All right, I'm going to go for a hike afterwards. That's how you cope, and that's how you decompress. That's a great thing I love about EMDR, where it does give you that opportunity to help them build some more and use the stuff they got. Because if they have interests in things, why not use them? That's a lot easier than, picking from a list of coping skills and then, oh, let's try this. Oh, this didn't work. Let's cross this out. You can totally do that. But if there's other things you enjoy doing, do that. It doesn't have to be anything overly complicated either.
No, and I think that that's it. The other part too with EMDR. I think that the resourcing, while it can be done within the EMDR session, I believe in the pre and post EMDR
Oh
sessions
yeah,
of resourcing individuals.
so much.
I think EMDR itself, and yes, I'm not going to be liked by some people. EMDR itself cannot help you if you're not
Yeah,
resourced previously and
you
post.
have to be prepared. You absolutely have to be prepared, because there's, I think, a lot of people that, you can take it in off the street, and sure, you can do EMDR and it's great, but I think there's also a lot of people that need that prep work before they can even get to that point, because you have to be really comfortable with being uncomfortable for quite a long time. And are there people that, take forever avoiding doing EMDR because that's what they come in for? Absolutely, there are. But I think that there's a lot of folks that they need just regular, like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, building some of those skills too before getting into it, and I think sometimes that, ratio can be half and half. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less. It really just truly depends on the client. I mean, if I have folks that like call me up and just want to do EMDR, I'll do just EMDR. But if they also are not like remotely ready, I'm going to assess that too. And there's some that it takes convincing to do EMDR. Like, hey, I got this cool voodoo tool. Let's try it. And they push it off or avoid it. But there's some that just have no interest in it. And that's fine too. I think it's great, where it needs to be. And I've had great luck with it for folks that have had a lot of, especially like in my certification process, single critical incidents that it was, something big that occurred, whether it be like, like a newsworthy type thing or not. Come to me, they do the sessions and they feel amazing. And that's all they need, because they've got all of these regular coping mechanisms. They've got a support system. This is a hiccup and they needed to work on it. I've had others that they come and we need to build that rapport before they even want to talk to me about anything.
Right. And for me, that's how I deal with it. It's like we build a rapport before I decide EMDR or not.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you have a critical single incident that you can do the EMDR, which is amazing. But if everyone who want to go on YouTube, if you open another channel of something else, then simple EMDR probably won't be enough. But if it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you saw XYZ, it didn't make the news, maybe it did, doesn't matter. You deal with that, and then you're like, there's nothing else attached to it. It's just what it is. All right, single
Mm-hmm.
EMDR will absolutely work.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
and my experience is that it's never about that one thing.
Oh, it's so many things. They branch off.
So I
They
always
they
go
totally
like,
branch off.
let's give you skills so that when you're done with EMDR, because the first few sessions for me, I always find that people leave and go, wow, I'm all fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we gave you skills before and then they get better and then we resource them and we challenge them. And then on the other side, most of my clients
Mm-hmm.
come in every 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks after that. Sometimes people just
Uh-huh.
go, but for the most part, I try to hold them at least for a few sessions before they go on their merry way.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
But I look at the time right now, Erin, and I want to make sure that we are respectful of your time and my time. But how will people reach you in general? Would they go to a website? Would they go to anything else?
Yeah, they can definitely go to my website, www.beautifullyunbrokencounseling.com. I do have a little form on there that if you're interested in counseling, send the form. And I prefer the form, or you can even just email me from my website as well, just so we can set up a time to have a phone chat. Because what I find is we'll play phone tag for weeks at a time and it goes nowhere. So if we can at least set up a time to do like a 10-15 minute just phone consult, that always works. And my email is my name, Erin Sheridan at beautifullyunbrokencounseling.com. I do have Instagram and Facebook for my practice. I do not for the life of me remember what the handles are. I don't update it that much. I don't have time to update it that much. But if you type in my practice name, I'm sure it will come up.
Well, and I like to read your LinkedIn because I feel like you do that really well. So
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am on LinkedIn. I just discovered that recently. I was like, "Ooh, this is pretty cool." It's like social media, but for networking. I'm a bit behind on the times, apparently.
Well, anyway, I do, and I've reposted your stuff a few times. I
Oh, thank
definitely
you.
enjoyed seeing Erin there. But Erin, looking forward to more meetings together and chit-chatting. And yeah, it comes September. I think that when this comes out, you'll be coming over to my office for the first time because we're
Cool.
doing the meeting here. So can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I will bake this time. I'm not, coming home the night before from vacation, so I'll bring some
that was your
baked goods.
excuse the last time. It's not going to fly
I know.
twice.
I had no food in my house and I got home late.
Well, whether you bring food or not, I'll be happy to see you. But I know we'll talk before that. Erin, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being on the show. And to
You're
everyone
welcome.
else, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you join us for episode 224. Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.